Hiya! Welcome, Ratlings. I'm Paranoid Rat, and I'm back with more art to feed my army. Bon appetit! Let's get into it. AI sucks. AI steals from artists and cranks out unoriginal art that skims off the actual art created by the actual people with no compensation or credit for the original artists. So you know what I'm doing today? I'm stealing from AI this time because actual artists are superior and I can do whatever I want. This is something I've seen a number of artists do and I thought it was cool. I've been really busy with commissions and struggling with my own art and inspiration lately and just coming up with ideas for videos. And then, not having the time to make said videos, but stealing from AI brought me joy, so here we are. I just found this piece of AI art of this girl that looked kind of cool to me I was like, I can do better. And just looking at it, you can tell how very AI it is, like what the fuck is going on either of these hands. And the tattoos are all over the place. It's clear. So, redraw it I will. I've been struggling with doing more interesting full pieces in my art for a while, forever honestly. I'm more inclined to just draw a character or a character design on a blank background because that's what's easy for me and familiar and takes a lot less mental energy. And it's easy to do for YouTube too. So it's rare I do a more random piece like this and get to practice this sort of thing with, like lighting and composition or whatever. So not only am I getting revenge, but I'm also getting to strengthen my own skill as an artist. And mimicry is a really good way to improve your art, and it's something I don't do often anymore, but it's beneficial to any artist at any stage in their art career, I suppose. So firstly, I laid out the sketch, I made adjustments. It's not like a perfect one-to-one comparison, so, I'm fixing certain things and making them make more sense, but using the original as like a jumping off point. There is a lot of detail in this piece, so the line work gave me a bit of problems. The original doesn't have line work, but this is my art, and my art style has line work, so I do whatever I want. And I want line art. This one was a nice warm-up though, because the next one I do has a lot more detail, so this was a way to ease myself into that, I suppose. The tattoos were a lot harder than I anticipated. Again, trying to make nonsensical lines AI Frankenstein together makes sense, was more challenging than I prepared for. Because when you just look at AI art like this, it's just like, oh, neat, look at all that detail. But when you actually try to look closer and are trying to redraw it, you just see how little the lines actually make any sense. But I persevere and let myself take my time. I was prepared for this whole piece to take so much longer than my average art, but it actually took just around the same amount of time as just a typical drawing of mine. Surprisingly, I usually get overwhelmed by this kind of thing, and I think it'll take way too long or it's too much work. But when I sit down to do it, it's actually shockingly easy, and I realized how much I underestimated myself, I suppose. Rendering was probably my favorite part. Y'all know I love rendering. I like the colors, and these are colors I love using, which is largely why I gravitated towards this one. And it also took a lot of the pressure around the coloring off, which was nice. Picking colors in a color palette and what colors to use in the render can be kind of overwhelming sometimes. But this did turn into a good color study for me, and paying attention to which colors were used, where, and how they blend, and I got to use vibrant colors, which I love. The hair was a beast, though. Trying to get it to look like what I was copying, but also not straying too far from my style was interesting. It was a lot of just building up the colors and shapes over time and slowly adding more details and such. And when I render, I always have the color layer locked so I don't exceed the lines. But when it comes to hair like this, I sometimes just toggle that on and off as I work out the strands and the overall shape better. And then afterwards, I did a little bit of work above my line art layer. I used to do that a lot more, and it was a large step in my rendering process. But I've been lazy, and I didn't want to do that as much because that was extra work. But I do wish I had done that a bit more on this piece because I feel like it would have really benefited from that. Or at the very least, messed with the line art color a bit more, but I don't really care, and I feel like the dark lines do give it a cool look and is more recognizable as my style. I think I've talked about this before in my arcane art study, I believe. But when it comes to copying a piece of already existing art that's been fully drawn and colored and is a complete piece, the process of rendering and lighting is very different than my usual process, and I think it's a good change for me. Typically, I just do all my normal colors, and then I do like basic shadows and lighting, and then at the end, I use blending layers to unify it all. But when I do something like this, I can't do that as much, nor is it needed. And I think it's a good thing for me to practice, and I want to improve on my personal art because I do believe it creates a more interesting and dynamic piece. Anyways, yeah, I'm super happy with this. It's not a one-to-one, but it was a cool exploration of my style, and it was fun, and I'm very happy with the end result. And again, you know I love being petty like this, so yeah. Okay, this second one I did was way more out of my usual art. Usually my art gravitates towards more organic matter, you could say, with bright colors or whatever, but I've gone through phases where I was obsessed with like black and white plus red as like a bonus color for the color palettes. This was a lot of my old traditional art looks like this. For some reason, I had a phase. So it was kind of going back to my roots color-wise, which was fun. And drawing mechanical and like tech things can be very overwhelming and complex, so I don't do it that often, even though I think it looks so cool and it's something I want to really get better at, because I think it adds such a cool aesthetic, and it's so amazing. I love it. So I found this piece, and I thought it'd be a cool way to expand my horizons or whatever, but also, you know, fun stuff that I already do like drawing. And especially using AI as a reference for that techie stuff, I'm kind of forced to fend for myself, because like I said, AI is just a Frankenstein situation, and it just throws colors and lines and shapes together, where from afar it looks cool and makes sense, but up close it's like, what the fuck is going on here? So again, making sense of something that doesn't make sense. Also, the skulls feel really out of place and weird, but I wasn't sure how to make those make any sense, so I just rolled with it, I guess. It doesn't always have to make sense, and since they are such a prominent part of the original composition, I left them. The line art on this one was pretty overwhelming with all of these shapes and details, but again, I figured it out, and I think it doesn't look too bad. And it's a big distinguisher from the original, again, because the original doesn't use line art like my style does. Shockingly, the skulls gave me the most trouble out of all of this, and since my reference had kind of janky looking skulls, mine look kind of weird, and I was too lazy to fix them. Sorry about that. But they look fine, I guess. I just don't look too close. Once I had all the line art out of the way, rendering the tech parts was so much fun. Rendering metal and things like this is one of my favorite things. I love rendering the light and reflections with like the hard, clear edges and shapes. So yes, very fun. Again, it was daunting and I underestimated myself again, but it was way easier than I anticipated and quite fun. Just getting over the initial hurdle and trepidation was the hardest part, to be honest. And if I wasn't doing this exercise, I wouldn't have created something like this, because I would have gotten too overwhelmed or not have the inspiration or willpower to figure it out. And I do really like rendering in black and white-ish, because there is a shocking amount of nuance to it. Like from afar, it's just like, oh, it's black and white with some red. But when you look up close and see the hue shifts in the gray and where it's used is super cool to me, because there's a lot of variety to grays. To make grayscale drawings more interesting, I recommend paying attention to that. Like in this one, I used a mix of warmer tone grays that were almost brown, then I used some light blue gray that like blended interesting with the warm tones, and then used a lot of like greenish gray for the metal to distinguish it more from the skin and skulls. Because they're all gray, but they're different kinds of gray. This is something I knew nothing about or cared to learn about until I got my first like proper marker set, and like I think like 1/6 of the markers in there were just gray. And at first I thought this was really dumb and unnecessary, until I started paying attention and realizing the impact of which gray I used in my art. It's such a small thing, but I don't know, it's really cool and interesting to me, and a fun thing to pay attention to. And if you draw with muted tones, I recommend exploring the wide world of grays, if you can. Anyways, I'm also very happy with this one. Again, it took so much less time than I thought it would. I think it took less time on this one than I did on the previous one, which was, I was not expecting, because looking at this, I felt like this one would be a lot more complex, but no, it wasn't. Honestly, just the rendering on the other one took so long with all the hair and skin and tattoos. I mean, I'm not complaining. I like it when I can finish a piece pretty quickly, so that's nice. And I've had some people asking me about how long I spent on a piece. I think I spent 3 hours on the first one, and I think this one was like 2 hours, which that's pretty average for me. At least for like drawing like a single character, like a full rendered single character, that's usually about like 2 hours for me. So yeah, this was fun. I enjoyed this. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this too. If this video does well, I might do this again because it was really fun and I enjoyed myself. And I'm a petty bitch and I love profiting off of AI that's been making us artists' lives hell. If you'd like to see this again, let me know, or if you have any other tips for artists about how to protect your art from AI, feel free to share. I don't really talk about AI too much on this channel yet, but you know, if you guys have experience or advice, feel free to share it. And if this is something you want to do yourself, don't forget to mention that this is a study from AI, because whatever you draw wasn't your original art in concept. Even if it was made by someone typing words into a search bar and a computer cobbled it together, don't claim it as your own because that's not chill. Thank you all for sticking to the end. If you enjoyed this video and my art, you can find more where that came from here on my channel and on my other social media accounts. Thank you all so much for the support you've given me. Just the other day I hit 25k subscribers, and that is insane to me, and something I never thought would happen. So yeah, thanks, and any interaction with my content really means so much and helps me loads. With that, I conclude the rat meeting. Till next time, ciao!